In the shadowed corners of medieval Europe, where ancient castles stand like silent sentinels and the whispers of the past mingle with the howling winds, a dark force stirs. Father Lucien, a devout and fearless priest, and his young apprentice Elias are bound by faith and fate to confront the most terrifying evils that lurk beyond the veil of the natural world. Together they journey through haunted ruins, cursed villages, and war-torn lands, facing demons both spiritual and human. Their mission: to protect the innocent, unravel ancient mysteries, and banish the malevolent spirits that threaten to consume all in darkness. This is the tale of their relentless battle against the shadows, a story woven with history, horror, and hope. A story where faith is the light in the darkest night and courage the weapon against the unseen terrors. The autumn wind swept through the narrow cobblestone streets of the Alsace village, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into the very bones of the ancient stone buildings. At the edge of the village stood Montreux Castle, its dark silhouette looming against the gray sky like a sentinel from a forgotten age. Once a proud fortress during the days of the Crusades, it now rested in uneasy silence, its walls steeped in centuries of whispers and shadows. Father Lucien Varroc adjusted his heavy cloak against the cold as he guided his young apprentice, Elias Gravois, along the winding path leading to the castle gates. Elias, barely more than a boy, struggled to keep pace, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The journey had been long and arduous, but the urgency of their mission left no room for hesitation. And the villagers speak of strange happenings within the castle walls, Lucien said in a low voice, eyes scanning the twisted iron gate ahead. Unexplainable screams, lights in the dead of night, shadows moving where none should be. The lady of the house, Lady Evelyn Montreux, has been possessed for weeks now. The local priests have failed. We have been called upon by the Vatican to perform an exorcism. Elias swallowed hard, the weight of the task settling heavily on his young shoulders. He had heard stories of possession before, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. The thought of a soul so consumed by darkness that it fought to tear itself free from the world of the living. Lucien placed a steady hand on Elias's shoulder. Remember, the devil preys on fear. We must hold on to our faith no matter what we face inside. As the heavy gates creaked open, the cold night air was swallowed by the vast courtyard, dimly lit by flickering torches mounted on the castle walls. The silence here was deeper, thicker, as if the very stones absorbed sound and hope alike. They were greeted by a gaunt servant, eyes hollow and voice trembling. "My lady awaits in the chapel. She has not spoken since the darkness took hold." Inside, the chapel was a place of faded grandeur. Stained glass windows fractured, pews worn and cracked. At the altar stood Lady Evelyn, her once radiant face pale and gaunt, eyes sunken and glowing faintly with an unnatural light. She did not turn to acknowledge their presence. Lucien stepped forward, holding a small silver crucifix. "Lady Evelyn, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we come to free you from this evil." Suddenly, the air grew heavy and cold. A guttural growl echoed through the chapel as Evelyn's body convulsed violently. Her voice, when it came, was not her own, but a chorus of whispered curses and forgotten tongues. Elias watched, heart pounding, as his mentor began the rites of exorcism. The battle between light and darkness had begun, and with it, the first night of what would become a relentless journey into the heart of evil. The heavy wooden doors of Montreux Castle shut behind Father Lucien and Elias with a final echoing thud that seemed to seal their fate inside the ancient stone walls. The flickering candlelight in the chapel cast dancing shadows, making the darkness feel alive and watching. Lucien began the solemn prayers, his voice steady but strained. Elias clutched the prayer book tightly, trying to memorize every word, knowing that the ritual they were about to perform was far beyond anything he had learned in the seminary. Outside the chapel, the castle groaned under the weight of centuries, and the wind howled like a mournful spirit. The presence of something unholy was palpable. The exorcism was not merely a religious rite. It was a battle against a darkness that had taken root deep within the castle's heart. Suddenly, a chilling scream pierced the silence. Lady Evelyn's body arched unnaturally, her head whipping back and forth. Her eyes, glowing with a sinister light, locked onto Lucien with pure hatred. "Begone, priest! You cannot save her!" hissed a voice that was not hers, but something far older, filled with venom and malice. Elias felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He gripped Lucien's arm as the room temperature plummeted. The flickering candles guttered, shadows creeping along the walls like living tendrils. Lucien responded firmly, raising the crucifix. "By the power of Christ, I command you, unclean spirit, to leave this vessel." The air thickened with a suffocating presence. The demonic force inside Evelyn fought back, her body convulsing violently, as if something invisible sought to wrench her away. Elias watched, heart pounding, as Lucien recited prayers in Latin, the words ancient and powerful. He could see the priest's face, pale but resolute. Suddenly, the candles blew out, plunging the chapel into total darkness. Elias heard a terrifying guttural growl close to his ear. The faintest whisper of cold breath brushed against his neck. "Do not falter," Lucien urged, voice steady in the darkness. "Faith is our shield." After what felt like an eternity, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. Light returned as Lucien relit the candles, and Lady Evelyn collapsed into a deep, exhausted sleep. The room was silent except for her slow, even breathing. Elias exhaled, his hands trembling. "Is she safe?" Lucien shook his head slowly. "Not yet. This night is only the beginning. The evil here is strong, ancient. It will not leave without a fight." As the first light of dawn crept through the stained glass, Elias understood the journey ahead would test everything he believed. Together, they would face terrors beyond mortal understanding. Haunted halls, restless spirits, and secrets buried in centuries of blood and betrayal. Montreux Castle was no ordinary place. It was a battleground where the line between the living and the dead blurred, and where Father Lucien and Elias's faith would be pushed to its very limits. The morning sun cast a pale light over Montreux Castle, revealing cracks in the stone walls and the faded grandeur of its once glorious halls. Father Lucien and Elias walked silently through the ancient corridors, their footsteps muffled by centuries of dust and decay. The previous night's exorcism had left a heavy weight in the air, as if the castle itself breathed with unease. Lady Evelyn remained unconscious, her body fragile and pale. The evil inside her was dormant, but Lucien knew it was far from defeated. "We must understand what we are dealing with," Lucien said quietly. "This spirit is not a common demon. It is bound to this place by a curse that stretches back centuries." Elias nodded, his curiosity burning despite the fear gnawing at his heart. "What kind of curse?" Lucien stopped before a large tapestry depicting a medieval battle. The castle's history is stained with blood and betrayal. Long ago, during the 100 Years' War, Montreux was a fortress contested by rival lords. One of them, Lord Armand, was rumored to have dabbled in dark arts to protect his domain. He traced a finger over the image of a shadowy figure cloaked in black, standing near a chapel. Legend says he made a pact with a demon to secure victory, but the price was his soul and the souls of those who lived here. Elias swallowed hard. So the evil we face, it's tied to that ancient deal? Lucien nodded grimly. Yes, that dark spirit has lingered, feeding on the fear and pain of the castle's inhabitants for centuries. It has grown stronger with every act of violence and sorrow. As they walked deeper into the castle's bowels, the air grew colder. Whispers echoed faintly, voices from the past reaching out through time. They entered the chapel where the exorcism had taken place. Lucien knelt before the altar, lighting a new candle. We need more than prayers. We need knowledge, history, faith, and courage. Elias pulled out a leather-bound journal he had found in the castle's library earlier, a collection of notes and sketches by a monk who had lived here during the Middle Ages. The pages were yellowed and fragile, but contained clues. There's mention here of a sacred relic hidden within the castle, Elias said. It's said to have the power to banish evil. Lucien's eyes brightened. If we can find it, we may have a chance. But as they planned their next steps, a sudden chill swept through the room. The shadows on the walls twisted unnaturally, and a faint, sinister laugh echoed through the stone halls. We are not alone, Elias whispered. Lucien stood, clutching his crucifix. Prepare yourself, Elias. The battle is only beginning. The cold shadow lingered long after the eerie laughter faded, and an oppressive silence settled over Montreux Castle. Father Lucien and Elias felt it deep in their bones. The dark presence was watching, waiting for them to falter. Determined, they returned to the library to examine the monk's journal further. The pages were brittle, but one passage stood out describing a secret chamber beneath the castle chapel. Lucien read aloud. It speaks of a relic, the cross of St. Severin, hidden by the monks during the last siege, said to possess the power to banish darkness. Elias's eyes widened. If that cross is real, it could be the key to saving Lady Evelyn and the castle itself. But the journal warned of traps and curses guarding the relic. We must be cautious, Lucien said. Dark forces will not let us take it easily. That night, under the veil of darkness, they prepared to descend into the depths. Lucien carried a lantern. Elias held the journal and a small dagger for protection. The chapel floor creaked as they pushed open a hidden door beneath the altar. A spiral staircase led down into cold stone corridors, damp with age. The air grew thick and heavy, each breath a struggle. As they moved forward, faint whispers echoed from the walls. Voices of monks who once protected the relic, now lost to time. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the passageway. Elias froze, gripping his dagger tighter. Stay close, Lucien whispered. The evil here is clever and restless. At the end of the corridor, a heavy iron door barred their way, covered in ancient runes glowing faintly red. Lucien traced the symbols with trembling fingers, murmuring a prayer. The door groaned open, revealing a small chamber bathed in a cold, pale light. On a stone pedestal rested the cross of St. Severin, a simple but radiant crucifix pulsing with a strange energy. Elias stepped forward but halted as a chilling wind swept through the room. The temperature dropped sharply, and a guttural growl echoed behind them. From the shadows emerged a twisted, spectral figure, the cursed spirit of Lord Armand, bound by his dark pact. Be gone, intruders, it hissed, eyes blazing with malice. The relic is mine. Lucien raised his crucifix and began to chant in Latin, the ancient words echoing with power. The spirit shrieked and lunged, but a bright light erupted from the cross, pushing it back. Elias joined the prayer, and together they held their ground. Slowly the apparition faded, dissolving into nothingness. Breathing heavily, Lucien lifted the cross. With this, we can break the curse. But we must hurry, Elias warned. The evil will not rest, and neither can we. As they ascended back to the surface, a new resolve burned within them. The battle for Montreux Castle was far from over, but now, armed with the sacred relic, hope glimmered in the darkness. The morning light cast pale rays through the towering pines surrounding Montreux Castle, but an unnatural chill clung to the air. Father Lucien and Elias, clutching the cross of St. Severin, prepared to venture into the dense forest nearby, the Whispering Woods, a place steeped in dark folklore and feared by locals. Legends say this forest is alive, Elias said quietly, with spirits that whisper secrets and lure travelers into madness. Lucien nodded, his eyes scanning the shadowed undergrowth. We must find the source of the evil that haunts these woods. If the curse spreads beyond the castle, no one will be safe. As they entered the forest, the silence was thick, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves. Every step seemed to awaken unseen watchers in the gloom. After hours of trekking, they reached a clearing dominated by a gnarled ancient oak. Its twisted branches clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers. At its base lay a weathered stone altar covered in strange runes. Lucien approached cautiously. This altar, it's not Christian. It predates even the castle. Suddenly, a soft voice whispered on the wind, an eerie melody that seemed to come from the tree itself. Elias shivered. It's calling us. From the shadows emerged a pale figure, an ethereal woman draped in tattered robes, eyes glowing faintly green. The spirit's voice was mournful. I am Aveline, guardian of the forest's secret. Long ago a dark pact was made here, a binding curse unleashed upon the land. Lucien raised the cross. We seek to end this curse and free those trapped in darkness. Aveline's gaze softened. The relic you carry is powerful, but the curse's root lies deeper. Beneath the altar is a hidden well. Within it, the heart of the darkness festers. Elias glanced nervously at the altar. How do we reach it? The well's entrance is concealed, Aveline explained. Only the pure of heart may find the path. Lucien took a deep breath, then knelt before the altar, praying silently. Slowly the earth beneath them trembled, and the stone altar shifted, revealing a narrow spiraling staircase descending into darkness. With steady steps they began the descent. The air grew colder and heavier with each step. At the bottom, they found a subterranean cavern lit by phosphorescent moss. In the center, a dark pool of water bubbled ominously. The well of cursed souls. Lucien stepped forward, holding the cross over the pool. In the name of light, I command the darkness to leave. The water churned violently as shadowy figures surfaced, tormented spirits bound by the curse. Elias grasped Lucien's arm. We need to purify this place. Lucien drew from the relic a small vial of holy water and sprinkled it onto the pool. The spirits wailed, then dissolved into the air like mist. The oppressive weight lifted, the cavern brightened, and a peaceful silence settled. Aveline's spirit smiled faintly. You have taken the first step toward salvation, but beware, the curse is relentless. Its master watches. They ascended back into the forest, carrying hope and the burden of their quest. The battle against the darkness had only just begun. The sun dipped behind the jagged peaks of the Ardennes, casting long shadows over the ancient ruins of St. Hilaire Abbey. Father Lucien and Elias approached cautiously, their footsteps echoing on cracked stones worn by centuries of neglect. This abbey was once a beacon of hope, Lucien murmured, but now it lies silent, its halls haunted by secrets darker than the night. Elias tightened his grip on the cross. The villagers say that anyone who spends a night here never returns the same. Some say they disappear altogether. The heavy wooden doors creaked open as they pushed inside. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and forgotten prayers. Flickering candlelight revealed faded frescoes depicting saints and sinners, locked in eternal struggle. A cold draft swept through the nave, carrying a faint whisper, like voices chanting in a language long dead. Lucien raised his crucifix. We are here to bring light to the darkness. As they moved deeper into the abbey, the temperature dropped further. Shadows lengthened and danced along the walls. Suddenly, The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the cloister. Out of the darkness stepped a figure, a monk in tattered robes, face obscured by a hood. "Who dares enter this sacred place?" the figure intoned in a voice that was both chilling and sorrowful. "We come to free this abbey from its curse," Lucien replied firmly. The monk lowered his hood, revealing hollow eyes and a face marked by torment. "I am Brother Matthias, bound to this place by a vow I broke long ago." Matthias told them the story. Decades before, the abbey had been a refuge during war, harboring those fleeing violence. But greed and betrayal led to bloodshed within its walls. Matthias had broken his vow of silence to warn the innocent, and in punishment, the abbey was cursed. His spirit, along with others, was trapped in eternal suffering. "We must find the relic hidden beneath the altar," Matthias whispered. "It holds the key to breaking the curse." Together, the trio descended into the crypts beneath the abbey. The walls were lined with ancient coffins, their lids cracked open as if disturbed by restless spirits. At the center lay a stone pedestal holding a tarnished chalice. Elias stepped forward, but was suddenly seized by icy hands emerging from the shadows. Lucien rushed to his aid, reciting prayers as the shadows writhed and shrieked. The grip loosened and Elias collapsed, gasping. "We must act quickly," Lucien urged, lifting the chalice. "This chalice was blessed to contain the blood of a martyr. We will use it to sanctify the abbey." With trembling hands, Lucien poured holy water into the chalice and sprinkled it around the crypt, chanting ancient rites. The shadows screamed and dissipated, light flooding the crypt. Brother Matthias looked at them with gratitude. "The curse weakens, but beware, the true evil remains, lurking in the shadows beyond these walls." As dawn broke, Lucien and Elias emerged from the abbey, weary but victorious. Their journey to banish darkness continued, the weight of the past heavy on their shoulders, but hope burning bright. The dense forest of Broceliande stretched before them, a tangled labyrinth of towering oaks and creeping mist. Legend said this ancient woodland was alive, not with animals or birds, but with whispers of restless spirits and forgotten curses. Father Lucien and Elias had come at the behest of a terrified village on the forest's edge. Children had vanished in the night, and eerie voices echoed through the trees, driving the villagers to fear the dark. "Stay close," Lucien warned, holding the lantern high. The flickering light revealed twisted roots and gnarled branches that seemed to reach for them like grasping hands. Elias shivered. "This place feels alive, like it's watching us." Suddenly a faint, melodic whisper floated on the wind, seemed to call their names, soft and seductive. "Do not listen," Lucien commanded. "It is the voice of the lost souls trying to lead us astray." Deeper into the forest, the trees grew thicker and the shadows darker. The path vanished beneath a carpet of leaves, leaving only instinct and faith to guide them. A sudden rustling in the undergrowth made Elias jump. From the shadows emerged a pale figure, a young girl, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "Help me," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm trapped forever." Lucien stepped forward cautiously. "What holds you here, child?" The girl's form flickered, revealing a twisted, sorrowful spirit bound by a curse. The heart of the forest, a dark relic buried beneath the oldest tree. It feeds on the souls of the lost. Elias clenched his fist. "Then we must destroy it." Guided by the spirit's mournful directions, they reached the ancient heart tree, a massive oak, gnarled and blackened, its roots twisting like serpents. Beneath its bark, Lucien found a hidden hollow containing a small obsidian box. Inside lay a twisted, pulsating stone that seemed to throb with malevolent energy. The forest seemed to pulse in response, shadows writhing and the whispers growing louder. Lucien lifted the box and held it aloft, chanting prayers of purification. Elias began to draw a circle of salt and holy ash around the tree, his voice steady despite the chilling wind. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted as shadowy tendrils shot from the tree, trying to ensnare them. Elias dodged, throwing holy water into the air. The tendrils recoiled, shrieking in pain. With a final incantation, Lucien smashed the obsidian stone against the tree's roots. A blinding light burst forth, and the forest fell eerily silent. The pale girl's spirit appeared once more, smiling softly. "Thank you. You have freed us all." As they made their way back to the village, the first rays of dawn broke through the trees. The forest no longer whispered, only the gentle rustling of leaves in the morning breeze. Lucien placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "The darkness lingers, but so does the light. We must keep walking the path." After their harrowing night in the whispering forest, Father Lucien and Elias returned to the village only to find a new horror waiting for them. A small chapel on the outskirts had been abandoned for decades, but recently strange lights and sounds had disturbed the peace. The villagers spoke of a curse that had plagued the chapel since the days of the Crusades. It was said that a dark ritual had been performed there, trapping a powerful demon within its walls, and those who dared enter were doomed to madness or death. Determined to uncover the truth, Lucien and Elias approached the chapel as dusk settled. The old wooden doors creaked open with a cold, unnatural breeze that seemed to push them inside. Inside, the chapel was cloaked in shadows, with faded frescoes of saints and angels peeling from the cracked walls. The air was heavy and suffocating, carrying the scent of burnt incense and something far more sinister. Elias held his crucifix tightly. "I can feel the darkness here, Father. It's unlike anything we've faced." Lucien nodded, his voice calm but resolute. "We must be strong. The evil within feeds on fear." They moved carefully toward the altar, where an ancient book lay open. The pages were filled with strange symbols and writings in Latin, warning of a demon named Malthus, bound by holy seals, but ever hungry for freedom. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed through the chapel. Shadows shifted, forming into a monstrous shape with glowing red eyes. "Begone, foul spirit!" Lucien shouted, raising his crucifix as he began an exorcism prayer. The demon screamed, lashing out with claws of darkness. Elias threw holy water, the sizzling sound filling the room as the creature recoiled. As the ritual intensified, the walls shook and the chapel seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Light pierced the gloom as Lucien's prayers grew louder, and the demon writhed, caught between worlds. With one final invocation, the evil entity was forced back into the depths of the altar, the seals glowing bright before fading into silence. Exhausted but victorious, Lucien and Elias emerged from the cursed chapel, knowing their fight was far from over. The shadow still lingered in Europe's ancient places, waiting for the next soul brave enough to confront them. The morning after the exorcism at the cursed chapel, Father Lucien and Elias received a desperate letter from a remote monastery nestled high in the Carpathian Mountains. The letter was written by the abbot, a once joyful man who now spoke of unnatural silence and shadows moving within the monastery walls. Without hesitation, the two set out on the arduous journey through steep, snow-covered trails. The air grew colder with every step, the sky heavy with dark clouds, as if nature itself warned them of the evil awaiting. When they finally arrived, the monastery appeared abandoned, windows shattered, doors hanging loosely, and an eerie stillness that swallowed every sound. Yet from deep inside, faint chanting could be heard, distorted and chilling. Inside, the monks had vanished, leaving behind cryptic symbols painted in blood on the stone floors and walls. The abbot's quarters were littered with torn pages from ancient manuscripts, filled with warnings about a demonic presence called the Whisperer that could steal voices and sanity. Father Lucien lit a candle, its flickering light revealing grotesque shadows twisting in the corners. Elias shivered as a cold breeze passed through the silent halls. Suddenly, a whisper echoed, soft but clear, calling their names from the darkness. Lucien, Elias. The two exchanged glances, knowing this was no ordinary haunting. The whisperer fed on fear and silence, trapping souls in eternal voiceless torment. They reached the chapel at the monastery's heart, where an old wooden statue of an angel stood cracked and broken. As Lucien began the ritual of protection, the air thickened, and a chilling scream shattered the silence. The whisperer manifested as a shadowy figure, shifting and swirling like smoke. It lunged at Elias, who barely dodged and raised his crucifix. Lucien joined in prayer, his voice steady despite the terror. Together they called upon the light to banish the darkness. After a fierce struggle, the shadow dissipated, leaving only the cold wind behind. The monks' voices slowly returned, echoing faintly from hidden cells as the curse lifted. Father Lucien and Elias knew that while this victory was hard won, the darkness was relentless, and their mission was far from over. The air in the village was thick with unease after the ordeal at the silent monastery, yet there was little time to rest. A mysterious package arrived one misty morning, wrapped in weathered leather and sealed with an ancient wax emblem. Inside, Father Lucien and Elias found a manuscript stained with dried blood. The pages were brittle, but the writings told of a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of a once majestic castle, long thought to be destroyed during the 100 Years' War. The manuscript hinted at a dark secret, an unholy pact made by a noble family desperate to save their lineage, involving rituals so vile that they corrupted not only their bloodline, but the land itself. Lucien studied the faded script carefully. This chamber could be the source of the evil that spreads through these lands, he said. If we can find it, we might stop the curse once and for all. Elias nodded, eyes sharp with determination. Then we must leave at once. Time is running out. Their journey led them through dense forests and crumbling villages scarred by centuries of war. The air grew heavier with every step, as if the earth itself mourned the sins buried beneath. Upon reaching the castle ruins, twisted vines and shattered stones spoke of a forgotten era. They descended into the darkness below, guided only by the faint glow of Lucien's lantern. The chamber was a vast underground hall, its walls etched with symbols of blood and fire. At the center stood an altar, stained dark with ancient sacrifices. As they explored, an unnatural chill crept through the air, and whispers echoed from the shadows, promising power in exchange for souls. Father Lucien gripped his crucifix tighter, sensing a presence that hungered for release. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the depths arose a spectral figure, the last descendant of the cursed family, bound in torment and rage. The confrontation was fierce. With prayers and sacred relics, Lucien and Elias battled to contain the vengeful spirit, their faith the only light against the encroaching darkness. When dawn broke, the chamber fell silent. The curse's grip weakened, but Lucien knew this was just another chapter in a long and perilous war against evil. The battle-scarred lands surrounding the ruined castle bore silent witness to centuries of bloodshed and sorrow. As Father Lucien and Elias left the dark chamber beneath the castle, the weight of history pressed heavily upon them. The curse, though weakened, still lingered like a shadow over the region. Their next destination was a small village devastated by the recent upheavals of war. Stories whispered among the survivors spoke of ghostly soldiers marching under moonlight, their armor clanking with an eerie cadence, and the screams of fallen warriors echoing through the hills. Upon arrival, the village was cloaked in a thick mist that seemed unnatural, a veil between the living and the dead. Villagers avoided the town square, where the worst disturbances were said to occur, fearing the restless spirits that roamed there. Lucien and Elias set up their base in the abandoned chapel at the village's edge. As night fell, the sounds began. Distant drums beating, spectral horses galloping, and muffled cries that sent chills down the spine. Venturing into the heart of the village, the two men encountered apparitions of soldiers locked in an eternal battle, their faces twisted in pain and rage. These echoes of war were trapped between worlds, bound by the unresolved fury of centuries-old conflicts. Father Lucien raised his crucifix, reciting prayers to soothe the tormented souls. Elias carried ancient relics blessed to calm restless spirits. Suddenly the ground trembled, and a spectral general appeared, commanding his ghostly army to fight on. His eyes burned with a hellish fire, refusing to accept defeat even in death. The exorcism was fierce and exhausting as the spirits resisted release, fueled by hatred and loss. But through unwavering faith and courage, Lucien and Elias gradually broke the spectral hold. With the dawn, the village began to breathe again. The mists lifted, the haunting ceased, and peace slowly returned. Yet Lucien knew the echoes of war were not the only shadows stalking these lands. The true darkness was still ahead, waiting in places where history and evil entwined most tightly. Following their harrowing encounter in the haunted village, Father Lucien and Elias traveled toward the dense forests of the Blackwood, a place whispered about in fearful tones by locals. Legend spoke of a veil, a boundary between the living world and the realm of spirits, that grew thin here, allowing restless souls to slip through. As they entered the shadowy woods, an unnatural silence fell. The trees stood tall and twisted, their branches tangled like skeletal fingers reaching out to snatch at unwary travelers. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Lucien held his crucifix tightly, murmuring prayers as they pressed deeper into the gloom. Elias carried a lantern that barely cut through the oppressive darkness. They soon came upon an ancient stone circle, half swallowed by moss and ivy. It was said to be a gateway, an old pagan site repurposed for dark rituals. Symbols carved deep into the stones pulsed faintly with an otherworldly light. Suddenly, a cold wind howled, carrying distant cries that chilled their bones. Shadows writhed and flickered at the edges of their vision, as if unseen eyes watched from the darkness. Without warning, a phantom figure emerged, a woman draped in tattered robes, her eyes empty voids of despair. She reached out, whispering a mournful plea for release from eternal torment. Lucien stepped forward, reciting ancient rites of purification. The forest seemed to close in around them, the veil between worlds thinning dangerously. Elias sensed a surge of malevolent energy as more spirits began to materialize, trapped in cycles of pain and regret. The exorcism became a battle not only of faith, but of wills, the woods echoing with chants and spectral wails. Slowly, the veil began to mend, as the trapped souls found peace and moved beyond. By dawn, the Blackwood was calm again. Yet Father Lucien knew the shadows would return, and his mission was far from over. After leaving the Blackwood forest behind, Father Lucien and Elias journeyed north, guided by a fragment of an ancient manuscript discovered in the village archives. The text spoke of a forgotten monastery hidden deep in the mountains, once a sanctuary for monks who guarded sacred relics said to hold power over life and death. The trek was arduous. Jagged peaks pierced the sky, and biting winds whipped the narrow mountain paths. At last, they arrived at the ruins, a sprawling complex of crumbling stone walls, half buried in snow and ice. Despite its desolation, an eerie sense of sanctity lingered in the air. The monastery's chapel, though shattered, held faint echoes of hymns long silenced. It was here that the curse had reportedly been sealed centuries ago, during a brutal siege. As night fell, a chilling wind swept through the ruins. Strange whispers floated on the breeze, as if the stones themselves remembered the horrors that had unfolded. While setting up camp, Elias noticed shadowy figures moving beyond the tree line, ghostly monks caught in an endless vigil, their eyes hollow, bodies swaying as if caught between sleep and death. Father Lucien prepared the rites, his voice steady despite the oppressive atmosphere. He called upon ancient prayers, invoking protection and light to pierce the darkness. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath him. The spirits of fallen monks appeared, bound by a sacred oath and trapped by betrayal. Their anguish was palpable, a storm of sorrow and rage that threatened to engulf all who dared enter. The exorcism was fierce, testing both men's resolve and faith. Elias wielded relics that shimmered with holy light, while Lucien's prayers pierced the gloom like a beacon. Gradually the spirits were released, their mournful cries fading into silence. The monastery, once a prison of torment, now seemed to breathe peace once more. But Father Lucien knew this was only another chapter in a long and perilous journey. The shadows were far from vanquished. The morning after leaving the forgotten monastery, Father Lucien and Elias descended into the labyrinthine catacombs beneath the ancient city of Ravenholm. The manuscript had spoken of a hidden chamber within the catacombs, where a powerful demon was said to have been sealed centuries ago by the first monks. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper underground. Flickering torches cast long shadows on the damp stone walls, etched with cryptic runes and faded frescoes depicting battles between angels and demons. The silence was punctuated only by the distant drip of water and their own footsteps echoing in the tunnels. Elias carried a sacred dagger blessed by the archbishop himself, while Lucien held his rosary tightly, reciting prayers to shield them from dark forces lurking in the depths. After hours of navigating the twisting corridors, they reached a heavy iron door bound in chains inscribed with the ancient symbols. The atmosphere was thick with malevolence, a palpable sense of dread pressing upon their spirits. As Lucien began the ritual to break the seals, a chilling voice whispered from the darkness, mocking, cunning, promising power, but at a terrible price. The demon's presence was palpable, a suffocating shadow trying to seep into their souls. The exorcism was fierce and draining. Elias thrust the blessed dagger into the seal, shattering the dark magic holding the demon captive. Light burst forth, illuminating the catacombs in a blinding glow as the demon's anguished screams echoed through the stone corridors. When silence finally returned, the air felt lighter, the oppressive weight lifted. Yet Father Lucien knew this victory was but a reprieve. The demon's curse had left a stain that would haunt them still. Emerging from the catacombs, they resolved to follow the next clue hidden in the ancient manuscript, deeper into the mysteries that awaited. The path led Father Lucien and Elias to the shadowed ruins of Castle Drachenfels, perched high on a jagged cliff overlooking a storm-tossed sea. The ancient manuscript hinted that the Crimson Crown, an artifact of immense power, was once kept here, and that its curse had devastated kingdoms and plagued rulers for centuries. As they approached, the wind howled through broken battlements, carrying with it the faint echo of war cries and the clang of swords from a long-forgotten siege. The castle walls, scarred and crumbling, bore silent witness to the horrors once unleashed within. Inside the great hall, tattered banners fluttered despite the absence of wind, their colors faded but still ominous. A chilling sense of dread hung thickly, as if the very stones retained the anguish of fallen soldiers and betrayed kings. Father Lucien carefully traced the symbols etched into the throne itself, a crown-shaped carving encrusted with dark rubies, rumored to be soaked in the blood of those who dared claim it. Elias discovered a hidden chamber beneath the floorboards, where they found the crimson crown resting on a stone pedestal. The moment Lucien touched it, a shadow surged forth, a specter of the last king, twisted by the crown's malevolent power. The apparition's hollow eyes burned with hatred, cursing all who sought to wield the crown. A fierce spiritual battle erupted, testing Lucien's faith and Elias's courage. With prayers and holy relics, they fought to banish the specter, ultimately shattering the crown's curse. As the first light of dawn broke over the cliffs, the storm clouds parted, and the castle seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. But the cost was high. The encounter left both men shaken, a stark reminder that some evils are ancient and relentless. The ruins of Castle Drachenfels behind them, Father Lucien and Elias followed the manuscript's next clue to the ancient city of Montclair, renowned for its tangled streets and dark history. There, beneath the cobblestones and centuries-old buildings, lay a secret, the Veil of Shadows, an ancient ritual said to cloak one's soul from both mortal eyes and malevolent spirits. Montclair's narrow alleys twisted and turned like a serpent's coil, shrouded in a perpetual mist that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of disappearances and eerie lights flickering at midnight, tales that chilled even the bravest hearts. Lucien and Elias sought out the oldest chapel in the city, a forgotten relic where monks once practiced esoteric rites to ward off evil. Within its crumbling walls, they discovered a hidden chamber, sealed by a complex array of sigils. As they prepared to perform the Veil of Shadows ritual, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, a former warlock, bound by chains forged from pure malice, desperate to reclaim the power he had lost. His eyes glowed with an unnatural fire, and his voice dripped venomous threats. The ritual became a desperate battle of wills and faith. With chants echoing through the chamber, Lucien invoked the protection of saints, while Elias wielded a crucifix that pulsed with radiant energy. In a climax of light and shadow, the warlock was subdued, trapped once again beneath the veil. But the ordeal left scars, physical and spiritual, reminding them that darkness could never be fully banished, only held at bay. After the harrowing encounter in Montclair, Father Lucien and Elias found themselves drawn to the outskirts of the city, where legends spoke of the Whispering Catacombs, an ancient underground maze rumored to house the restless souls of those betrayed in life and trapped in death. The entrance was concealed beneath a collapsed chapel, its stones moss-covered and slick with age. As they descended, a cold, damp chill seeped into their bones, and distant murmurs echoed from the labyrinthine tunnels. The whispers carried secrets in forgotten tongues, chilling warnings that seemed to seep into their minds. In the dim torchlight, they navigated narrow passages etched with cryptic symbols and frescoes depicting scenes of treachery, sacrifice, and eternal torment. Every corner seemed alive, shadows flickering like restless spirits seeking release. Deeper inside, Elias's instincts alerted him to a presence, something ancient and malevolent that fed on despair. As they ventured further, ghostly figures materialized, the betrayed, the lost, and the damned, their eyes hollow and voices pleading for salvation. Lucien began a solemn rite of exorcism, his voice steady despite the growing darkness. The air thickened with spectral energy, and the catacombs trembled as if alive. The climax came when the source of the unrest, a tormented spirit bound by a cruel betrayal centuries ago, manifested in a terrifying form. Only through the strength of their faith and Elias's unwavering support could Father Lucien break the curse, releasing the souls trapped in eternal torment. Emerging from the catacombs, both men were forever changed, carrying the weight of those freed. and the knowledge that their battle against darkness was far from over. The ancient town of Ravenshade was cloaked in an eerie silence, broken only by the haunting call of the night birds. Father Lucien and Elias arrived just days before the rare blood moon, an event steeped in superstition and feared by locals. Legends spoke of a secret covenant formed centuries ago under the red moonlight, an unholy pact binding mortal souls to dark forces beyond comprehension. The town's crumbling cathedral stood atop a hill, its towering spires piercing the night sky like skeletal fingers. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of incense and old stone, and the pews held dust-covered tomes detailing forbidden rites. Lucien sensed a palpable evil lurking within, a dark presence waiting to be awakened. Their investigation led them to the crypt beneath the altar, where ancient seals and arcane symbols guarded the resting place of the Covenant's founders. As the blood moon rose, crimson light filtered through stained glass, casting sinister shadows that danced along the walls. Suddenly, a chilling chant echoed through the crypt, and shadowy figures cloaked in crimson robes appeared, attempting to complete the ritual that would unleash a powerful demon bound by the Covenant. Lucien and Elias confronted the cultists, their faith and courage tested as the very fabric of reality seemed to unravel. In a desperate battle of light against darkness, the priest and his apprentice called upon sacred prayers and relics, breaking the unholy bond and banishing the demon back into the abyss. But the victory came at a cost, one that would haunt their dreams and forge an unbreakable resolve to continue their mission. The towering silhouette of Blackmore Keep loomed against the stormy sky as Father Lucien and Elias approached its iron-bound gates. The ancient fortress, nestled deep within the mist-shrouded moors, had long been the source of whispered tales, of disappearances, ghostly apparitions, and an evil curse said to plague its halls. The current lord had sent word pleading for help. His family was tormented by nightmarish visions and unexplainable phenomena that left the household in a state of dread. As the priest and his apprentice crossed the threshold, the air grew thick with a palpable darkness that seemed to suck the warmth from their bodies. Inside, the walls bore the scars of past battles and sinister rituals. The flickering candlelight revealed portraits whose eyes seemed to follow their every move. Whispers echoed through the corridors, and cold drafts swept past them like unseen fingers. In the great hall, they encountered the Lord's desperate family, pale and gaunt, haunted by terror. A malevolent presence lurked in the shadows, manifesting through objects moving on their own and chilling wails that pierced the night. Lucien prepared his rites while Elias secured the perimeter, their teamwork tested as the malevolence intensified. The climax came when the spirit of a betrayed ancestor, cursed in life and death, emerged, seeking vengeance and release. Through unwavering faith and courage, the duo performed a grueling exorcism that shattered the curse, freeing the keep from its spectral prison. As dawn broke, the moors fell silent once more, but the echoes of Blackmore's dark past lingered in their minds, reminding them that evil often wears many faces. The sun had barely set when Father Lucien and Elias stood at the entrance of the Whispering Catacombs, a labyrinthine network of tunnels carved beneath the ancient city of Mortham. Local legends warned that the catacombs were alive with restless spirits, their voices carried in the chilling wind that seemed to seep from the very stone. The town's recent spate of disappearances had led the priest and his apprentice here, where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred. Flickering torches illuminated damp walls etched with cryptic symbols, while distant echoes of sorrowful murmurs haunted their every step. As they ventured deeper, Elias noticed strange inscriptions warning of a curse. A dark ritual performed centuries ago to bind vengeful souls. Suddenly, the air grew frigid, and shadowy figures emerged, their faces twisted in eternal torment. Lucien raised his crucifix and recited ancient prayers, the sound reverberating through the tunnels. The malevolent spirits resisted fiercely, swirling around them in a whirlwind of despair and rage. Yet, the priest's unwavering faith acted as a shield, dispelling the darkness inch by inch. After hours of relentless struggle, the catacombs fell silent. The curse was broken, and the trapped souls found peace at last. As they emerged into the moonlit night, both men knew that their journey was far from over. Many more shadows awaited their light. The village of Ravenswood had always been shrouded in superstition and fear, but none dared speak openly about the Black Chalice, an ancient relic said to hold a curse that brought death and madness to anyone who possessed it. When the chalice resurfaced in the hands of a local noble, strange happenings plagued the village. Livestock dying overnight, children disappearing, and eerie shadows stalking the streets after dark. Father Lucien and Elias arrived under the cover of twilight, greeted by desperate villagers whose eyes were hollow with dread. The nobleman, pale and trembling, begged them to cleanse the chalice's evil before it consumed the entire village. Inside the noble's manor, the chalice rested upon a dark velvet cloth, its surface seemingly absorbing light. The priest sensed a malevolent power radiating from it, a darkness tied to the bloodshed of ancient wars and forbidden rituals. As Lucien began the rite of purification, the chalice emitted an unholy glow. The air thickened and spectral hands clawed at the edges of reality, attempting to drag the priest and his apprentice into the abyss. Elias stood firm, chanting protective prayers alongside Lucien. Hours passed in a battle of wills and faith. The chalice cracked, its curse broken by the power of their devotion. Dawn found Ravenswood bathed in sunlight once again, its people freed from the shadows of the Black Chalice. The Abbey of St. Alaric stood atop the misty cliffs overlooking the North Sea, its towering spires casting long shadows over the rugged coastline. For centuries, it had been a place of worship and refuge, but recent nights had seen the emergence of a haunting presence, a phantom cloaked in sorrow, wandering the abbey's stone halls and crypts. Father Lucien and Elias were summoned by the abbot himself, a man worn thin by sleepless nights, and the growing fear among the monks. Rumors whispered of a curse tied to a tragic love story from the abbey's founding, a tale of betrayal, death, and eternal unrest. Upon entering, the air was thick with cold and the scent of ancient incense. The phantom appeared at the stroke of midnight, a translucent figure weeping silently, her eyes hollow with despair. Lucien sensed her pain was not of this world but trapped by a grievous wrong done centuries ago. With solemn prayers and the lighting of blessed candles, the priest began a ritual of release, seeking to free the spirit from her torment. Elias held the ancient tome, reading aloud the invocation that would break the chains of sorrow. As the ritual climaxed, the phantom's form shimmered and then dissipated into a cascade of silver light. Peace finally settled over St. Alaric's Abbey once more, but Father Lucien knew that the scars of history ran deep. Their battle against darkness was far from over. Blackmore Manor loomed at the edge of the ancient forest, its windows like dark, watchful eyes. For generations, the estate had been home to the Blackmore family, but whispers of madness and tragedy clung to its crumbling walls. Locals spoke of restless spirits and chilling screams echoing through the night, driving away anyone brave enough to stay. Father Lucien and Elias were called to investigate after the sudden disappearance of the manor's current lord, a young man plagued by nightmares and strange visions. As they entered the grand, decaying halls, a heavy silence pressed down on them, broken only by the faint sound of distant crying. Their search led them to the manor's chapel, where ancient tapestries depicted a dark pact made centuries ago, an agreement with a demon in exchange for power and wealth. The air grew thick with malevolence as shadows slithered along the walls. Lucien began the exorcism rite, the ancient prayers echoing off the stone. The demon revealed itself as a grotesque, twisting form, trying to break free from the bonds of the ritual. Elias steadied his nerves, reciting prayers alongside his mentor. After a harrowing battle of spirit and will, the demon was banished, its screams fading into the night. Blackmore Manor's curse was lifted, but the echoes of its dark past lingered, a reminder of the thin veil between this world and the next. Beneath the ruins of the once mighty fortress of Eldwin, hidden from the eyes of the living, lay a crypt long sealed and forgotten. Legend told of the many warriors and nobles who perished in the bloody siege centuries ago, their souls trapped within the cold stone walls, unable to find rest. Father Lucien and Elias arrived under a slate-gray sky, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. The villagers nearby warned them of unnatural shadows that moved without form, and whispers that rose from the ground at dusk. As they descended into the crypt's depths, flickering torchlight revealed carvings of ancient battles and sacred rites. But a dark force lingered, sensing their presence and growing restless. The walls seemed to close in, the silence broken by distant echoes of anguished cries. Lucien began the sacred prayers, invoking protection and peace for the lost souls. Elias carefully read passages from the Book of Shadows, guiding the ritual with steady hands. Suddenly, a chilling gust swept through the chamber, and ghostly apparitions emerged. Warriors clad in spectral armor, eyes glowing with sorrow and rage. The battle was not with swords or shields, but with faith and will. The priest and his apprentice stood firm, chanting prayers that pierced the veil between life and death. Slowly, the spirits found release, their forms dissolving into gentle light. As dawn broke over Eldwin, the crypt was silent once more. The village breathed easier, freed from the haunting that had shadowed them for generations. Yet Lucien knew this victory was but a moment in their long journey. Darkness would rise again, and they must be ready. In the heart of a forgotten village nestled between misty hills stood the ancient monastery of St. Alaric. Its stone walls, worn by time and weather, held secrets whispered only in the dead of night. For decades, the villagers had spoken of strange voices carried by the wind, murmurs that stirred fear deep in their souls. Father Lucien and Elias were summoned when a group of monks reported eerie apparitions and chilling laughter echoing through the cloisters. Upon their arrival, an oppressive silence greeted them, as if the walls themselves watched and listened. Exploring the labyrinthine corridors, the duo uncovered cryptic symbols etched into the stone, reminiscent of dark rituals from a time when the monastery was a stronghold in the Crusades. The air grew heavy with dread, and shadows twisted unnaturally. One night, as Lucien performed a midnight vigil, the whispers grew louder, forming words in an ancient tongue. Elias felt a cold breath on his neck, a presence unseen but palpable. The spirits revealed themselves, souls of fallen crusaders trapped by a curse born of betrayal and bloodshed. Lucien recited prayers of absolution and mercy, his voice unwavering. Elias followed, wielding holy relics that glowed with sacred light. The monastery trembled as the spirits were released, their sorrowful howls fading into peace. Though the haunting ceased, the whispering walls left an indelible mark on their souls, a reminder of the enduring scars left by war and the power of forgiveness. The year was 1348, and Europe was gripped by the Black Death, a terrifying plague that swept across the continent with ruthless speed. In the small town of Saint-Gervais, fear and despair had settled like a dark cloud. Families were torn apart, and the once bustling streets lay empty, haunted by death's cold embrace. Father Lucien and Elias arrived as hope flickered faintly among the survivors. But this was no ordinary illness. Rumors whispered of a sinister presence lurking behind the sickness, an evil spirit feeding on the suffering and despair. The two set up a makeshift sanctuary in the chapel, tending to the sick and praying for deliverance. Yet, shadows moved in the corners of their vision, and anguished cries echoed in the night. One evening, as Lucien prepared a blessing over the town, a figure cloaked in darkness appeared. In the flickering candlelight, a specter with hollow eyes and a chilling grin. It spoke in a voice like the rustling of dead leaves, promising death and destruction. Determined to save the souls of the living and the dead, Lucien and Elias confronted the plague's dark heart beneath the cemetery. Armed with holy water, relics, and unyielding faith, they battled the malevolent force that sought to claim all. As dawn broke, the plague's shadow receded, leaving behind a town forever changed but free from the grasp of the evil that had thrived on death. Deep beneath the crumbling ruins of Castle Veldrin lay the crypt of silent echoes, a tomb whispered about in fearful tones by the villagers nearby. It was said that those who entered never returned, swallowed by darkness and haunted by their own regrets. Father Lucien and Elias, compelled by a vision that troubled Lucien's dreams, ventured into the catacombs. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and forgotten sorrow. Their footsteps echoed endlessly, swallowed by shadows that seemed to breathe. As they descended, they found inscriptions warning of an ancient curse. The restless spirits trapped within sought vengeance for a betrayal long buried in time. The crypt walls hummed with ghostly murmurs, voices of the past clinging to the present. Suddenly, a chilling wind blew out their candles. In the darkness, Elias felt cold hands grip his arm, spectral fingers trying to drag him into the abyss. Lucien held firm, chanting prayers that pushed back the darkness like a shield. They uncovered a sealed chamber where a forgotten noble had been imprisoned alive, his soul twisted into a vengeful wraith. The exorcism was arduous, battling not just a spirit but centuries of pain and hatred. When the final prayer was spoken, silence fell. The echoes stilled, and the crypt's heavy air lifted. Emerging into the moonlight, Father Lucien and Elias knew the dead had finally found peace. In the remote village of Valtoria, nestled between jagged mountains and dense forests, lay an ancient chapel long abandoned. Locals whispered of a veil, a mystical barrier said to separate the living world from the realm of restless spirits. Father Lucien and Elias arrived, drawn by a series of strange disappearances and unsettling dreams plaguing the villagers. The chapel's crumbling walls bore faint inscriptions in Latin, warning that prayers left unheard could give rise to darkness. As twilight descended, a thick mist curled through the village streets, and the veil between worlds grew thin. Shadows slithered along the edges of vision, whispering forgotten prayers and curses alike. Inside the chapel, Lucien discovered a hidden altar beneath broken stones, stained with ancient blood and marked by symbols of a long-lost cult. Elias heard soft chanting, distant yet chilling, growing louder as the night deepened. The two realized the village was caught in a spiritual trap, souls bound by broken promises and forgotten faith. To lift the veil, they had to confront the source, a sorrowful spirit, betrayed and abandoned, whose sorrow had twisted into a vengeful storm. Armed with sacred relics and unwavering faith, Lucien and Elias performed a rite to honor the forgotten prayers, releasing the trapped souls and restoring peace to Valtoria. at least for now. The year was 1347, and the shadow of the Black Death crept relentlessly across Europe. Villages fell silent, fields lay fallow, and fear hung heavy like a suffocating fog. But in the small town of Marrow's End, something darker than the plague itself was at work. Father Lucien and Elias arrived just as the first bodies were found mutilated, their faces twisted in terror and agony. The townsfolk whispered of a curse beyond the pestilence, a malevolent force feeding on despair and death. Within the walls of the town's ancient church, Lucien discovered strange symbols drawn in blood, signs of dark rituals performed to ward off the plague. But these rituals had torn a rift between worlds, allowing restless spirits and vengeful demons to slip through. As the plague spread, so did the hauntings, shadowy figures stalking the streets, spectral cries echoing in the night. Lucien and Elias confronted these horrors, battling not only the physical disease but the spiritual corruption festering beneath. In a desperate rite of exorcism amidst the dying and the dead, they fought to close the rift and banish the darkness. The cost was high, but their faith and courage were the only shields against the creeping shadow of the plague. Beneath the bustling city of Avignon lay a labyrinth of catacombs, forgotten by most and shunned by the curious. It was here that Father Lucien and Elias descended, following rumors of unnatural sounds echoing beneath the earth, whispers of the dead, or perhaps something far worse. The catacombs twisted and turned, walls lined with the bones of countless souls laid to rest centuries ago. But these remains did not lie in peace. Faint murmurs and eerie chants filled the damp air, growing louder as the duo ventured deeper. In the heart of the labyrinth, they uncovered a sealed chamber, adorned with symbols of necromancy and blasphemy. A dark presence pulsed within, a spirit bound to the earth by forbidden rituals and a forgotten curse. Lucien held his crucifix steady, chanting prayers to pierce the veil between life and death. Elias, clutching a candle, watched as shadowy figures began to materialize, their hollow eyes filled with anguish. The exorcism was fierce. Shadows clashed with light, ancient curses met holy words. With unwavering resolve, the priest and his apprentice shattered the dark hold, freeing the restless souls and sealing the catacombs once more. As they emerged into the sunlight, both knew the battle was far from over. The whispers might return, but for now, the dead were finally silent. Nestled on the edge of a mist-shrouded moor, Ravenswood Manor had long been a place of whispered legends and dark secrets. When Father Lucien received a desperate letter from Lady Eleanor, the manor's last surviving heir, he knew his next mission awaited. The manor's walls groaned with the weight of centuries, its corridors cold and shadowed. Residents spoke of ghostly apparitions, figures draped in tattered robes wandering the halls, and a chilling presence that seemed to watch from every corner. Elias, carrying a lantern, followed Lucien through the winding passages. They soon found the source, an ancient family altar defiled by black candles and blood-stained runes. A malevolent spirit bound by betrayal and sorrow lingered, its rage poisoning the very air. As Lucien began the solemn rite, the manor seemed to come alive. Doors slammed, spectral wails filled the night, and unseen hands sought to snuff out their light. Yet, with steadfast faith and unwavering resolve, Lucien and Elias pushed back the darkness. In the climax of their exorcism, the spirit was finally freed, its anguished cries replaced by a profound silence. Ravenswood Manor would stand, cleansed and at peace for the first time in generations. In a remote village shadowed by dense forests, an abandoned chapel stood desolate, its once white walls now blackened by smoke and decay. The villagers whispered fearfully of the chapel's dark past, a place where forbidden rites had been practiced, summoning forces best left undisturbed. Father Lucien and Elias, arrived just as twilight painted the sky blood red. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant howl of wolves. As they approached the chapel, a chill ran down their spines, an unnatural cold that seemed to leach warmth from their very souls. Inside, the chapel was a crypt of shadows. Burned relics lay scattered, and symbols of heresy marred the altar. A foul presence lingered, a demon once summoned and bound, now struggling to break free. Lucien gripped his crucifix tightly and began the exorcism, invoking prayers that echoed through the hollow space. The demon fought fiercely, manifesting in twisted shapes of smoke and fire, but the priest's faith was a beacon against the darkness. With Elias's help, they completed the ritual, sealing the evil back into the depths. As dawn broke, the chapel stood silent once more, its curse lifted, for now. Far beyond the bustling cities, deep in the Carpathian mountains, lay the ruins of an ancient monastery, swallowed by time and nature. The locals avoided the place, speaking of a curse that befell anyone who dared trespass. It was said that the monks long ago had turned to dark magic in a desperate attempt to protect their sacred relics, dooming the monastery and themselves. Father Lucien and Elias, compelled by the disturbing report, set out toward the monastery. As they climbed the rocky path, the air grew colder and heavier, filled with an eerie silence that pressed against their chests. Upon arrival, they found the monastery cloaked in shadows and twisted vines, the stone walls cracked and stained. Inside the chapel, an altar cracked with age bore symbols of an ancient and forbidden ritual. The air was thick with a palpable malevolence that set their nerves on edge. Lucien lit a candle and began to read from the Book of Exorcisms, while Elias prepared protective circles with salt and holy water. Suddenly, an anguished wail echoed through the chambers, and shadowy figures flickered at the edges of their vision. The battle for the monastery's soul had begun. With prayers and holy rites, Lucien confronted the dark spirits, ancient monks bound by their own sins and the curse they had unleashed. Elias's youthful courage and quick thinking aided the ritual's progress. Hours passed as the exorcism grew fiercer, the ground trembling beneath them. But finally, with a final prayer and the ringing of the chapel's bell, the curse was lifted. The monastery's silence became peaceful once again, as if the spirits had finally found rest. Not far from the cursed monastery, a dense forest stretched endlessly, a place the villagers called the Whispering Woods. Tales spoke of voices carried by the wind, luring travelers deeper into its shadowy heart, never to return. Many believed the forest was a gateway between worlds, where restless spirits wandered. Father Lucien and Elias ventured cautiously into the woods at dawn. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with mist, and faint whispers seemed to swirl among the leaves. As they moved deeper, the whispers grew clearer, fragments of conversations, pleas for help, warnings in languages long forgotten. The shadows shifted, forming ghostly shapes that flickered at the edge of their vision. Suddenly, Elias felt a cold hand brush his shoulder. He spun around, but no one was there. The forest seemed alive, watching them. Father Lucien recited prayers, his voice steady despite the growing dread. In the heart of the woods, they found an ancient stone circle worn by centuries. It pulsed with dark energy, a focal point for the spirits trapped between realms. The exorcism began, the air crackling as unseen forces fought back. Together, the priest and his apprentice invoked light to dispel the darkness. Slowly the whispers faded, replaced by a peaceful silence. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Exhausted but victorious, they marked the site with holy symbols, ensuring no evil would rise again from the Whispering Woods. The year was 1356. and the ancient fortress of Raven's Hollow lay besieged by enemy forces. The stone walls, scarred from countless battles, stood defiant against the invaders. Yet within those walls, a darker battle raged unseen, one of restless spirits refusing to leave their eternal prison. Father Lucien and Elias arrived, just as the last defenders prepared for a final stand. The commander, a grizzled veteran, spoke of a ghostly figure that haunted the ramparts, a phantom believed to be the soul of a betrayed soldier seeking vengeance. That night, as the moon cast pale light over the fortress, strange sounds echoed through the corridors. Whispers, footsteps, and a mournful wail that chilled the blood. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones of shadows moving on their own, weapons disappearing and unseen hands clutching at their throats. Lucien and Elias explored the ancient battlements. In the armory, they found relics stained with blood and a tattered banner bearing a forgotten sigil. A sudden coldness gripped them as a spectral figure appeared, pale, armored, and eyes burning with sorrow and rage. With calm resolve, Father Lucien invoked prayers and blessed the ground. Elias, armed with holy water, stood ready. The phantom surged forward, its voice a deafening roar of anguish. A fierce struggle ensued between light and darkness. Drawing strength from their faith, the priest and apprentice banished the tormented soul, breaking the curse that bound it to Raven's Hollow. As dawn broke, the fortress stood quiet, freed from its ghostly siege. Nestled atop the rugged cliffs of the northern coast stood the silent cathedral, a towering structure of stone and shadow. Its spires pierced the gray sky, and its stained glass windows cast eerie, fractured light across the desolate landscape. For decades, locals whispered about the cathedral's cursed silence. No bells had rung, no choir sung, and no prayers answered within its ancient walls. Father Lucien and Elias arrived at dusk, the wind howling like lost souls through the arches. The cathedral's massive doors creaked open, as if inviting them inside. Once within, a heavy stillness enveloped them, an oppressive quiet that seemed to swallow even their footsteps. Inside, shadows clung to every corner. The altar was draped in cobwebs, and the pews stood empty, coated in dust. Suddenly, a faint chant echoed through the nave, an ethereal hymn in a language forgotten by time. Elias's heart pounded as ghostly figures materialized, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Father Lucien raised his crucifix and began the rite of cleansing. The spectral choir's mournful voices crescendoed, shaking the cathedral's foundations. Elias sprinkled holy water, tracing ancient symbols on the cold stone floor. The battle was not just against spirits, but the cathedral's own sorrow and despair, trapped within its walls for centuries. As dawn broke, a warm light filled the cathedral. The silence lifted, replaced by the distant sound of a bell's toll. They had freed the silent cathedral, restoring hope where there was once only despair. Deep in the shadowed woods of the Blackwood Forest, a sinister presence lingered. An ancient curse whispered through generations. The villagers of nearby Alderbrook lived in fear of the witch's mark, a symbol burned into the flesh of those accused of witchcraft, doomed to suffer eternal torment. Father Lucien and Elias were summoned after a young woman named Isolde was found wandering the forest, her body bearing the ominous mark. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and her voice spoke in tongues no living person should know. Arriving at the village, they found a community torn apart by suspicion and paranoia. Families turned against each other. Neighbors whispered of dark rituals and unholy pacts. Isolde's condition worsened, her spirit battling forces beyond comprehension. Lucien prepared an ancient exorcism ritual, one that had been passed down through secret church texts. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they entered the heart of the forest, where the curse had taken root. The trees seemed to close in, the air thick with malevolence. With every prayer, Elias poured holy water over the mark, while Lucien called upon divine protection. The forest trembled as shadows materialized, twisted, angry spirits bound to the witch's curse. The battle was fierce, but their faith was stronger. Slowly the mark faded, Isolde's eyes cleared, and peace returned to the haunted woods. Under the crimson glow of the blood moon, an ancient covenant awakened from its centuries-long slumber. The small village of Raven's Hollow lay nestled in a valley surrounded by dense forests and jagged mountains. For generations, the villagers feared the night of the blood moon, when dark forces would gather to renew their unholy pact. Father Lucien and Elias arrived just days before the ominous night, summoned by desperate villagers whose loved ones had begun to vanish. Whispers of shadowy figures and unnatural howls filled the air. The villagers spoke of an old legend, an ancient cult that thrived under the blood moon's light, drawing power from forbidden rites. Inside the village chapel, Lucien pored over dusty tomes, searching for clues on how to break the covenant. Elias patrolled the village, watching for signs of the cult's return. As the blood moon rose, the villagers barricaded their homes, fear etched on every face. That night, the forest erupted with unholy chants. Dark-robed figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing like embers. Lucien and Elias confronted them in the village square, reciting prayers of protection and wielding sacred relics. The battle was fierce and relentless. The air thickened with malevolent energy as the cultists summoned demonic entities. But the priest's faith and the apprentice's courage held firm. With a final prayer, Lucien shattered the covenant's dark bond, banishing the cult into the shadows once more. As dawn broke, the villagers breathed a collective sigh of relief. The blood moon's curse was lifted, at least for now. The shadow of the Inquisition loomed large over the ancient city of Montreuil. The streets, once vibrant and full of life, now echoed with whispered accusations and the heavy footsteps of hooded inquisitors. Father Lucien and Elias had come to this city under a grim summons, the disappearance of several children suspected of being pawns in a dark conspiracy. Montreuil's Grand Cathedral, a Gothic masterpiece scarred by time and conflict, was at the heart of the mystery. Rumors told of secret chambers beneath its floors, where forbidden rites were practiced in the dead of night. The Inquisition, once a force of order, had become a terrifying instrument of fear and cruelty. As Lucien delved into the labyrinthine archives, Elias explored the shadowed alleys, uncovering clues that spoke of a hidden sect working to unleash a demon sealed centuries ago. The sect's symbol, a twisted serpent entwined with a cross, appeared on walls, whispered prayers, and the pale hands of those afflicted. The city grew restless, and the lines between friend and foe blurred. The final confrontation took place in the cathedral's crypt, beneath stained glass windows shattered by years of neglect. Surrounded by relics and ancient bones, Lucien and Elias faced the cult's leader, a man consumed by madness and dark power. With prayers, steel, and unwavering faith, they fought to prevent the demon's release and bring light to the darkest corners of Montreuil. As dawn broke, the city sighed under a fragile peace, but the scars left behind whispered that evil never truly dies. The air was thick with anticipation and dread as Father Lucien and Elias stood before the looming gates of Blackthorn Castle. This fortress, perched atop a jagged cliff, had long been a place whispered about in fearful tales, a place where darkness thrived and souls were lost. For weeks, rumors had spread of a sinister force awakening within its stone walls, a malevolent spirit, bound by ancient curses and fueled by centuries of hatred, had begun to torment the nearby villages. The villagers' pleas for help had reached the church, and now the final exorcism was to take place. Inside the cold, cavernous halls of Blackthorn, The shadows seemed alive. Whispers echoed through the corridors, and the flicker of candlelight revealed twisted faces in the stone. Lucien clutched his crucifix tightly, while Elias steadied the ancient relics they carried, symbols of faith and protection. The ritual began as the blood moon rose high, casting a sinister red glow over the castle. Chanting prayers, Lucien invoked the names of saints and angels, his voice steady despite the oppressive darkness. Elias joined, reciting prayers learned through years of study, their combined strength pushing back the evil force. The spirit manifested, a swirling vortex of rage and despair, its voice a chilling cacophony of lost souls. The battle was both spiritual and physical, testing their faith and willpower to the limit. With each prayer, the spirit weakened, its form dissolving into a shimmering light. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the castle grew silent. The curse was lifted. Father Lucien and Elias, exhausted but victorious, stepped out into the morning light, knowing their journey had ended. But the battle against darkness would never truly cease. As dawn breaks over the horizon, the shadows that once plagued the lands begin to recede, banished by the courage and faith of two unwavering souls. Father Lucien and Elias stand as silent guardians between the world of men and the realm of darkness, knowing that though this battle has ended, the war against evil is eternal. Their journey has tested the limits of human endurance, belief, and sacrifice. But through every trial, their bond grew stronger and their purpose clearer. The legacy they leave behind is one of hope in the face of despair, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the light of faith and courage can never be extinguished. And so the story closes. But the tale of shadows and salvation will echo through the ages, whispered wherever darkness tries to creep, reminding all that heroes rise when faith stands firm. What do you think of Father Lucien and Elias's journey? Which moment left the strongest impression on you? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear your voice in this timeless battle between light and darkness.